Namaste everyone, welcome to Advaita Vedanta Satsang House. Today being Sunday is an open discussion on Advaita, and Bindoji is here to offer us an hour and a half of his time. So the two channels, which is your, you can either put it in the chat or you can come up and ask questions to the open discussion, or you can, if you have any questions arising from the earlier rooms on Bhagavad Gita, those are also questions that can be brought forth. In the chat, I've shared the links for the Advaita Retold channel and also the two links for Apple and Spotify, where you can access the earlier rooms as recorded replays. You can also access them in Clubhouse. The other link is a book titled Imaginary Door, penned by Artemisia, who is here with us today. And that has been published on Amazon, which is based on a collection of insights into Advaita from Bindoji and ensuing discussions with Artemisia. With that, I think the room is open now. Over to you, Bindoji.
Thank you, Prakash. So, welcome everyone. Being Sunday, it's your turn, not my turn to talk.
Maybe Artemisia has something to share.
Checked with her. I don't think she does, but just to say that none of us have to have some extremely formulated, deep, specific question. You know, if there's some topic we'd like to ask Bindo about in Advaita to understand it more deeply, something that we've been thinking about but don't quite have a question yet that we'd like to share or let others come up and comment on, that's totally welcome.
Namaste, Nana. Namaste, Patrick. Namaste, Hussein.
Looks like if there's nobody coming up, I can ask a question to Bindoji.
You should ask the question to Artemisia.
Okay. No, but this is about Bhagavad Gita. So Artemisia might. So Bindoji,
There's content in it. I'll comment. Don't worry. Go ahead, Bindo. Let Prakash ask you. Yeah.
So
Yes,
Bindoji,
Prakash.
by the time we reach chapter 4, verse 33, there is this almost, it's almost like the whole thing has been revealed. So what is the rest of the Bhagavad Gita about, Bindoji?
Well, there are so many things because people are of different make. Adhikari Beda, like, each one is pursuing certain path. And Krishna has to give direction to every one of them. So it's not just he addresses the karma yoga alone. He has to address the bhakti, the jnana, the yoga. All those paths are to be given due, importance. Because he has already said that all paths are my path. So he cannot leave any of those paths without describing how they should achieve it. So you will find that from the 6th onwards, it will be more on the meditation and dhyana and bhakti marga. So 12th will be more on devotion. Then comes 13 will be the indweller and the system. That is Kshetra, Kshetrajna or Jnana. Then Gunatraya Vibhaga is that how the Guna Guneshu Vartande, how did the 3 gunas get divided and how they act, that is being described. Like that, Krishna is leaving no stone unturned in the explanation.
Yes, Vinodji. Yeah. But even this chapter that we deep into in the last 2 weeks. So when a student is ripe enough to do the nididhyasana or not do the nididhyasana, do the manana, so that the nididhyasana is a kind of non-confusing but continuous insight. Then the rest is an unfolding of other parts. Is that right, Binduji?
Actually speaking, it's in the whole process of Advaita, we are not seeking something which is not there with us right this very moment. But we do not recognize it as ourselves. So, whatever method it takes, for some people it is Shravana Manana and Nidhyasana, some people it will be Bhakti, some people it will be Yoga. So, whichever path they take, the Aparoksha Anubhava or the immediate recognition of the reality of the consciousness, which we are experiencing in our every experience, there is this awareness or consciousness. But we are not able to identify with the source of the awareness. What we are aware is a connection of the awareness with the content of the awareness, and which we call it as an experience. So the attention from the point of view of human being or the individuality is to the content and the relationship with the content. The consciousness in which both the subject and the object is depending upon is not getting the due, what you call, attention. So the presence of that consciousness is actually what the reality is. But when the content is being observed and seen, I take a stand that I am the observer of it. Actually speaking, the observer and the observed is from the point of view of the mind and the sense organs. But in the presence of that awareness or consciousness, all the bifurcation or the multiplicity dissolves. That dissolving is what Srini was asking that day. What is that dissolving is talking about. So that is where all the multiplicity dissolves, and that awareness is what I am. That recognition, not as the I am the body that way, but it is the awareness knowing itself, or the consciousness being conscious of itself. That aspect, once become clear, then there is no returning back to the identification that I am the body. Because from that, the body, mind, intellect is seen as, tools for the waker to interact with the waking world. We keep that tools when we move to the dreamer. Different set of tools are picked up as the dreamer and the dreamer's mind and sense organs. Like that, when we identify, see them as, happenings in consciousness, like the waves in the water. Waves and water are not different, but the wave seems to be happening in the ocean. When that realization takes place that the happening, whatever happens inside the happening, is not different from that what I am also, or my reality is. That aspect is the culmination of the Nididhyasana. But until that happens, it is what is called is a Vrittijnana. Vrittijnana means the consciousness or the awareness experienced by us through the mind and the intellect. That is not the reality actually. But when we talk about consciousness and the real awareness, the chances are that we will be only able to identify with what is being reflected in our mind or the intellect. But that is not the reality, what is called the actual pure awareness or pure consciousness. That is the being, the state. It is not a state, it is the substratum, or it is the fundamental reality, or our true nature, which cannot be articulated using the words which we have it. That is what we have the problem also when we are asked to define who we are without using any words from the memory. Because we have created a caricature of ourselves with all the words which we have picked up till now from our memories to define ourselves. But that is not what we are. We are there before that. We will be there after this body also goes. That it is in which the way, how confidently I am saying that? Because I am leaving my waker when I go to the dreamer. I leave the waker and the dreamer when I go to the deep sleep. I leave the deep sleeper also when I move to waking or dream. So one is left when other is picked up. But I am aware of all the three being picked up and dropped also. So when that happens, I have to be different from the one who picks up the waking or the dream or the deep sleep has to be different from the waker or dreamer or deep sleep. Therefore, I have to be eternal. And when I picked up these things, I felt I am that, the waker or the dreamer. This is where we are having our problem to disassociate in the waking that we are not the waker. But one who has identified himself as that reality, or he has the immediate recognition of his true nature, for him this is not real. Just as this is real for us. For the person who has identified that, this is unreal and that is the reality.
Prakash, can I comment on what Bindo said?
Please go ahead. Yeah, please.
Yeah. Okay. Before I do, though, just so people are clear, this isn't a room for a talk or anything like that. Everyone is welcome to come up to discuss with Bindu what's on their mind about Advaita. I was going to make a comment to Samar, but he's left, unfortunately, but I can message him. But I wanted to comment on what you were saying, Bindu, because it sounds like you've been snooping around in my own way of thinking and expressing the last few weeks, and it was really beautiful. This emphasis on the fact that this isn't something somewhere else. It's a reorientation to exactly where we are. And you even express this in a way that really has a lot of meaning for me. It's the way I tend to think, is that we mistake all the contents for consciousness itself. And the fact that I am aware in all these different apparent phases of waking, dreaming, deep sleep, being drunk, being sober, whatever the state is that has contents, there's this kind of orthogonal, if you think of like vectors, this orthogonal space of just being conscious. And, what a gift it is. I mean that kind of metaphorically, but what the absolute relaxation, and actually, although we were advised against enjoyment, in the end, there's a kind of different meaning of enjoyment to me that's so important. That what that enjoyment isn't any of the content. The enjoyment is this intimacy with the fact that fact seems a little wrong, but the case that right this moment, I'm aware. I'm not unaware. I'm aware. And when that is just so being intimate with it, there's such a, that's it. Just an enjoyment of the fact of being aware regardless of what's happening. And I felt like you were coming from that direction. I just want to say one other thing, which is I've said this, quite a few times in rooms, because I feel like it's a direction people go wrong. But it's so important to me, and I think you were emphasizing it. So I just want to share it. There is this seriousness, and I do think it's good to be a serious seeker. I've been a very serious seeker. But on the other hand, when it's kind of like we have to do this, this, and this, we have to meditate into this state. We have to study and review the lessons. We have to, it can be something that causes us to forget what I've said, which is all along for me over the many years. I do remind myself that the various traditions tell us we're talking about something that's ever present. And so for me, the orientation of how is it, what am I missing here? Not studying a book or getting some meditative state or whatever, although I've done all those things and I think they're important, but what is it I'm possibly missing that I need to, instead of being so, nose to the grindstone, I also need to be so relaxed, so open is a better word, that I could possibly find what I'm missing right here now, not tomorrow when I've meditated more, but right here. And not just, oh yes, I'm in the present. I mean, this is like the absolute most precious thing, but there's I don't know. You know how I feel about this, Prakash, and Bindu probably hasn't watched us go back and forth a little bit. But, I feel like having all these pedagogies, we have to really realize that the truth doesn't lie ultimately in following some pedagogy and studying some book. And although those things are very useful, we're going to have to find something right here that didn't require any of that. And you and I have been to have talked a little bit about, the fourth Brahma Sutra, but never gotten to actually studying that in a class. But this is actually the truth. We don't have to make a life of studying. Although, like Bindu, you're continuing to study, and I continue to study in neuroscience and other research. But it's because that just deepens the enjoyment and the awe of reality, including the appearances in it. So I felt like you were speaking to, if I was to say something this morning, Bindo, it would have been about the absolutely complete and simple enjoyment of just being with consciousness itself, regardless of any of the contents. And now everyone else can talk about whatever they wish, but thank you.
Namaste, Brick.
Namaste, Bindo, and all. Yeah, I was thinking along the same lines, Artemisia, when I started to think about developing my question. I've recently had the wonderful experience of coming to know a book series by Neale Donald Walsch. It's called Conversations with God. And a friend of mine and I are doing a room where we do this book reading, but it's really an audio book. And I find that these questions that he asks God in these conversations are coming right from me a lot of times, and because he also has a Christian background, and so his questions to God are tailored around questions of revolving around Christianity, and all that comes with Christianity. So, but I really like the idea that from the singularity that God created the multiplicity to experience himself in a different way than he was experiencing himself in the singularity. So I've simplified that quite a bit, because I like to see things in a simple way. And I know many of these things get very complicated, and I don't get bogged down in the weeds. I try to just stay on the top of the wave and listen. But it seems to me that this whole experience is nothing more than something to be experienced. And so it lines up with that it lines up with Leela, the play of God, that who I am in that play is who I am in that play. So to see the body and the mind as something identified to and detached from enough to put it in the right place is something that should be done. It makes sense because we're suffering from faulty thinking and patterns. And so I see that also. But the reason I bring this up about his experience is that has been what I've always thought. I knew this, but I didn't know how to articulate it or even ask questions about it. That this experiencing ourselves is the Leela. And so my question to you is, I remember you saying something, because it stuck with me, about, it wasn't to me that you said it, it was someone else about, or you just said it, I don't know if it was a particular person. You said, don't get too attached to the experiences, because they're just like, they're a spark, they're a glimmer showing you something. But it seems to me, Bindo, that it's just small experiences to not be attached to just lead to bigger experiences and insight and detachment. So it seems like all experience to me. So I just wondered if you could touch on that about the experience aspect of all of this that we're studying and talking about and reading about and listening about, of how experience plays in the understanding of who we are.
Thank you, Brett. It's a beautiful question you have asked. What we call as experience is never going to be an experience unless we are the part of it. It becomes an experience to me only when I am present. When I am present, the experiences, either my mental level or physical level, has got other contents in it which I think is bringing experience to me. So my tendency to relate to my experience to the content of the experience and then calling it as good, bad, liked or disliked, or all the opposites in which I name it or categorize it. But what I'm forgetting in the whole process is that it is my presence, you call it as my desire, or whether you call it as my play. The words have no what you call a particular direction in that way. But that is what is giving rise to the so-called experience. Now this experience becomes bifurcated or dichotomized because I start evaluating them using my mind as likes or dislikes, wanted, unwanted, good, bad, etc. Really speaking, there is no such conditions in the objects or the contents of the experience. That is my reaction, not my presence which is reacting, but the mind through which I am interacting. That mind is conditioned with latent impressions or training which it has got, or what we call it as conditioning done by the growing up from childhood with parents, society, teachers, religious teachers and friends, etc., have given rise to the evaluating capacity to me to call it as good or bad, wanted, unwanted, etc. But it is neither in me nor in the content such categorization. They are mere events in consciousness or awareness. As long as I am able to take them as they come without evaluating or reacting to them, but as incidents or events happening in the consciousness, then I am into the play or desire or whatever it is the term which we want to use it. That is the only time when you can really say that it is what we intended or what it is supposed to have happened. But what happens is that since our baggage of memories from the growing up, we do not see the full picture, or we rather start evaluating them with the conditioning which we have gone through. And it is this conditioning what is actually creating problems for us in our life. No event is good or bad, they are just events happening, including death, disease, or happiness, bringing whatever is that. We need not be extremely happy or be enjoyed because we are getting pleasure out of it. Who is enjoying the pleasure? Or who is having the happiness? Not the awareness, but at the mental, intellectual level, the individuality is the one who is evaluating it. So therefore, when we are looking at it, the happiness or the sorrow, the likes or dislikes, is all due to the conditioning of our instrument. We should not get under the what you call guidance of those impressions which we had gathered. Let events be events, and nothing is going to happen, because even death is not a death for us. It is the one which I told you. The waker goes to dream. The waker is dead. The dreamer is only what is a reality, right? Like that, it may happen one day. This instrument which we are using as mind, intellect, or sense organs also will not be validly remaining with us because we acquired it. Whatever has acquired has to be discarded. So that will happen by a natural process. Even that is not our death. This is what we have to say when it comes to the Leela or play from the point of view of the consciousness.
Thank you, Bendo. So to clarify, if I put it in my words, so the question that you answered, don't get too attached to the experience. The attachment that you were referring to was all that you just spoke about with the conditioning of the mind, placing it on the experience. So with the mind quieted to a place of equanimity, then that pure experience is all there is in this existence. As far as what are we to do or what are we to be here for, is to experience this in that pure state of no content. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's fair. That will stay. You're good, Brett?
Yeah, you have no idea how much you've influenced me with the way I think, Bendo. So thank you. Thank all of you who have contributed to that. So yes, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you, Brett. Mr. Biscuit?
Hey, Bendo. My question kind of concerns friends and family. So
Mm.
a lot of friends and family, as I'm sure you know, um, are identified with the ego or identified with the self, um, and they see themselves as the subject and the world as a competitor, an object or competitor. And so it seems to me that those who have come to the understanding of Advaita Vedanta almost have to develop the ability to speak two different languages. You know, the language that I can speak when I'm with you, and then a separate language that I have to speak in order to not terrorize those who are trapped in the egoic self. And a question is, how do we speak to other people who haven't given themselves intellectual permission to go there or who are afraid of it?
See, really speaking, we should not address them unless they come to you. The ground rule, what we have to take always is that those who are desirous to know more about it will naturally come and ask for more. We are not evangelical or professing Advaita to anybody to become Advaitic. No, that is the truth of everyone which we know, whether they accept it or they do not accept it. Because there is only one truth. Truth cannot be many. And we are talking from that point of view. But those who are intellectually inquisitive and ready to, go further into the investigation are the people who will approach and ask questions. Address only to them and answer their questions from the point where they are asking the questions. Now, the questions are also can come from two different parts. One is to counter you, to put you down, and then the other one is to know genuinely what is the path or the reality what we are going through. So those who are coming to you for putting you down and everything, best thing is to be in a very non-aggressive language. Tell them that I am where I am, you are where you are. Let us be friends, not argue with each other. You be happy where you are, I am happy where I am, and let them go their way. But those who are ready to want to find out what is there further to investigate it is the people whom we should engage with, whether they are friends, family, or, a co-traveler, or anybody it can be. But we never know that where the questions can come from. But you can immediately make out from the question itself how genuine or from where does the question come. Is it come from the deep heart where there is a definite yearning or a thirst for knowing the truth? Then it is better to handle it and, guide them or give them the answer what they would like to further investigate. That is the only way we can do it.
I have a question.
Just a minute. We are not complete here in the PTR order. Just wait. Hold on.
Okay.
Your gun is good. Can I move?
Uh, yes, and just a really really fast follow up, if you don't mind. I came from Christian mysticism, and we interpret Jesus saying, "Love your enemies, love your neighbors as yourself." That word "love" being a felt recognition of our shared being, and the difficulty with what you've just said, and maybe just a little bit of clarification, because Jesus seemed to be in favor of proselytizing and going out and converting. Would you disagree with Jesus on that, or have a different way of integrating that part of the message? But with that, I'm done.
Yeah, I'm not disagreement with what Jesus. In fact, all the advices what has been given in the Bible is not different from what Advaita talks about it. But bringing into it a theological outlook and, evangelical or prophesying thing that is not what Jesus intended when he made the statement. He was showing his love, his concern. And when that is being shown, he didn't want, because when Jesus himself was talking, there was no Christianity, which you all agree. I know that. Because of that, he was not converting anybody into Christianity or to become his followers. He was flowing with love for every human being who he touched in his path or in his life. That is what he wants every one of us to do. And he doesn't talk about any religion or any method in which it is done. It is pure love. And that love, what we are talking about is not the love we know today. Today we know love as a relationship between two people. But what love Jesus is talking about is seeing the humanity in the same coin, every one of them, as the son to a father. The father will have 10 sons, all 10 are equal to him. But today, things have changed. A son brings more money, may be more loved by the father. But that was not the way in which when Jesus made the statements. So we have to be very clear about it. What is the intended meaning of the statements in the Bible by Jesus, and then the words added by the followers to make more members into the community of Christianity. So there the teaching has got diluted to become more of an evangelical or a prophesying type of nature. But as an individual, you don't have to do it. If you can show the love which Jesus wants everyone to live in, if that is then you are becoming a living example for others to follow you or others to learn from you.
Thank you.
Before we go on, just to say that if someone has come up, you're totally welcome to stay up here and be with us if you want. And also, although we follow the order that people come up and we respect the one-on-ones that they're having with Bindo, sometimes it also turns in after they've said their piece that others want to tag on to it so that we could further explore.
What I interjected, I wasn't aware of who was in front of me. So.
Oh, no, I'm not speaking just to you. It's fine. That wasn't a reprimand at all. It was really an invitation for people to, especially to stay up here after they've spoken and just to help people to know it's not just you at all. So I'm sorry if that sounded that way at all. It's more of a welcome. So let's just keep going. And I think Srini was up here next. Is that right?
Yes. Namaste, Srini.
Namaste, Binduji. So, my question is on the dissolution which we talked on Friday, and today also you made the remarks. So actually I was caught off guard when you said that snake dissolves into rope, right? So actually I was thinking about it, and I think we have maybe the way we are visualizing the dissolution is slightly, so I just wanted to discuss more about what this dissolution means, because for example the standard thing would be like salt dissolving into water, right? So that is one way of dissolution, but I think that is not how you see it. Like for me, like for example, I was looking for better words, like the snake has evaporated and the rope remained, or see that kind of, like for example, if we are melting butter, right, and making ghee, then it is slightly different than dissolving salt into water, right? So there, okay, the butter gets cloudy, and eventually it turns clear. So it's like an evaporation or better clarity, the thing becoming clearer. So how do you look at this? Like visualization, when you use that word, how are you visualizing it, or what way are you looking at it? Can you just expand it?
See, Srini, the dissolution of karma into jnana is what we are talking about. And Krishna, in that particular series, mentioned that karma are born out of the gunas of the Prakriti. They will be there when you see the Prakriti. But Prakriti is not separate from the Brahman. And the gunas, therefore, is not separate from Brahman. And when the Jivan Mukta, or the person who has understood the reality of the truth, seeing that actions are really apparent actions, they are not real, there is a non-otherness, what we call in Sanskrit as ananyatvam. When that happens, then there are no two, there is only one. That is what is the dissolution is we are talking about in this particular example what I said. When the snake is not a reality, before, now and later, what is the truth was the rope alone. In between, for a fraction of a second, I felt it was a snake which was non-existent. So it was apparent. So the apparency brought an otherness to the rope. That apparent otherness is not a reality when I know it. That otherness is dissolving into the truth, which is the rope. So the snake dissolved into the rope, or the waves dissolved into the ocean, or the butter dissolved in the clarity of the ghee. All places that Ananyatvam, non-otherness, is what we are talking about.
Yeah, and I was also trying to connect it to the yajna, right? Like, for example, in a way, dissolution can mean that whatever you put in the fire is burnt and only the fire remains. So that is at one level dissolution. But the shloka also says Brahma Agnau. Even the fire is Brahman. So it's something different than dissolution. So I think that, like the way you said, I think that makes more sense to me. The appearance and disappearance is the dissolution, not like a salt dissolving in water, right? Is that
Right.
the right?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
This
Thank you, Vintage.
Ananyatvam, if you
Yeah.
can remember the word Ananyatvam, you will understand it.
Yeah, I think it's just a visualization problem. I think I'm visualizing because my question only was that something cannot, like, only like dissolves in like, right? Like, no, unlike things don't dissolve. So, yeah, in that way. Okay. Got it, Vintage.
Because you went by the literal meaning of the word dissolution, whereas
Yeah.
the meaning is intended meaning.
Yeah, Parisamapyate is very interesting word, I think. Yeah, in that way.
Yes.
Thank you, Vindaj.
Thank you, Srini. Namaste, Greg.
Hey, how's
Sorry
it
to
going?
keep you waiting.
No problem.
Fine.
I wasn't being impatient. I just didn't understand anyway. My question for you is, well, first of all, just a yes or no. Are you familiar with Sri Aurobindo to a learned depth?
I'm aware, not very much of an expert in Aurobindo. Yeah, but
okay. Well,
yeah,
look,
but Aurobindo is not
I guess,
different from what I. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, well, you're familiar with his idea of like evolution and kind of a collective rise to the supermind and all this stuff. I don't know what the Hindi term for supermind would be, but whatever. Anyway.
No, it's okay.
Anyway, I'm wondering where he could have gotten that idea in the Vedas or the Upanishads. Like, do you have any idea where that kind of idea is hinted at, even if in like a metaphor or like kind of some symbolism where that seems to be borne out by your holy texts? Thank you.
It is there in the Vedas. Sri Aurobindo's complete learning is from the Vedas directly. He was more of a Vedic decoder rather than, reading Shankara's alone, Advaita alone and explaining that. But he had no difference of opinion with Shankaracharya on the Advaitic principle. He said the Advaitic principle is the reality. But in the transactional world, that reality is the same thing which is appearing as the multiple, life, or what we call it as individuals, which is in a perpetual evolution to become the supra-mental person, which is exactly in the Veda what they call it as is the person who has become a Jivan Mukta, or a person who has realized the absolute truth. He is the evolved person or supramental person. Now the entire humanity becoming supramental, which Aurobindo is talking, is something which is not there in the Veda, or where he is getting the idea, or he is saying it from the point of view that ultimately everybody will be there one day or the other. That is the way in which he has foreseen it. That's all. The difference is the way in which it's...
Okay, so you're saying he's not getting that idea from the Vedas, he's getting it from his own private gnosis, like his own meditative enlightenment. That's what you're saying?
Yes. Thank you, Greg. Namaste, Uma.
Namaste, Binduji, and Artemisia Prakash, and everyone. I would like to bring this group of Dharma, which is from the Buddhism, but it has like a same base of understanding. And somehow I have a question. Because from Buddhism, wrong will is also say the word avijja. And avijja is just wrong will to still stuck in the seeing of animal or being or ego or a person or differentiation of subject between individual and other being as separation. And I would like to come back to the same point of language because I myself speak 3 languages. And the process of trying to express myself on Clubhouse is also like I caught myself feel embarrassed of my own reaction when I listened to some of the replay through the years, because sometimes I was really in deep into comparison or really waiting to have a reaction of my question to other to confirm that the understanding between one-on-one between the questioner and the answer would be the same angle of seeing. Because the body avatar, like you said, is obtained so many things. But if we see from the bliss state, 0 point sunyata, and trying to express the standpoint of not being subject, also not attached to the object, but to go back to the beingness, and at that stage, I question, is Brahman or Hinduism talk about fear? So in your perspective, once you're in that state, you fear anything? Thank you.
Uma, fear is spoken in the Upanishads, talking about the otherness brings fear. From the second is the fear coming from. You are never afraid of yourself. If you are afraid, it has to be something other than you. And that state of fearlessness is what is being recommended as the result of knowing that you are the only truth and you are the only one. Ekameva Dvitiyam Brahma. When you know that you are Brahman or Atman, there is nothing other than that. The otherness is dissolved, and when the otherness is dissolved, there is no chance for a fear to arise, because you don't see anything other than yourself. You don't hear anything other than yourself. You don't think anything other than about yourself. So all you see is the infinity of your own being. Not the individual, but the truth of the individual, which is the Brahman. The individual also is an appearance in that consciousness or awareness. So what remains is that awareness or consciousness. In that, things can appear. Like in the space, many things can appear. But without space, nothing can exist. Same way, everything in the consciousness or awareness is because it is part of the awareness itself. We may differentiate it with the name and form, but the name and form has a dependency on the awareness. If the awareness is pulled out of that, the name and form cannot independently exist. Therefore, the name and form is dependent realities, and the substratum, the ultimate reality, is the consciousness or awareness. And when we realize that everything is that, the otherness is no more there. And when the otherness is not there, you have no fear. You are absolutely free from fear. There is freedom and fearlessness as the outcome.
You must know you're muted.
Yeah. Oh, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
good. Good.
I was talking. Thank you. Yes, I understand that. So to see anything outside as separation is wrong will. But from the Buddhism teaching, there's more stage or across from being sentient or have wrong will or mix this and that on the choosing, but by the willpower to be complete in the journey of experience. And you mentioned only direct experience count. Somehow from Buddhism teaching, like in this paragraph, it's more like when we already lost the ego death happened, then we know that everything should go back to oneness. But somehow in speaking against one another or in a debating manner with no respect in deep listening. That's why Clubhouse has taught me deeply. And I kind of go back to listen to myself and study myself a lot, would have to say, because sometimes I felt like the difference between this or that is because we don't have the way of win-win. Because the win-win for oneness is infinite and everything is a processing circle, going the same way or go against the force of life. And to express as individual against the truth of other that we miss in this now. That is why for me the question happened, but in the setting of one question, one teacher, or one speaker against all of us, infinitely. That is really refined. But for some being who already doing a lot of wisdom of seeing, then it's expand to the deeper awareness of the whole body awareness. And that's why somehow, sometimes it's so hard to compare from service to self, service to others, service to the all, because that formation of illusion happens as Maya when someone says something, because then it deserves the peace of silence and move it all if other people hear it and question it. So to speak is somehow a divine ability that I am now really impressed and respect to all elder and teacher who walk this path before me and willing to teach or share or anything at all in words or not in words, because the real language is not words. Thank you.
Thank you.
Namaste, Karin. You're back. Namaste.
Bindoji. Namaste, everyone. I'm back.
Good.
Not really. I'm in a weird position right now. I listen a lot, and I even got the nickname that I agree with everything. So in that agreement, there is, I can hear truth in so many things. So it's not really that I'm here to find something, but it's beautiful to listen to different things when it's spoken from genuine, from being genuine. And like Uma was talking to, and she was really, in her way, really being genuine. And I find that with a lot of people in Clubhouse too. Others are still hidden, but I can't say I'm really back. Like I don't know what to do with myself actually. So I'm kind of waiting to see which direction is gonna come up. So that's where I'm at.
Perfect.
If I can, you were, when Brett asked the question about Christianity, and you also said there's a lot of similarities. Yes, there is. If I look at the Vedic expression of bhakti, there's many, many gods. And I even once made a comment that when you have a monotheistic God, it makes it a lot easier because the only thing Jesus really has said, like, love God, love your neighbor as yourself. So on all this, all the commandment goes. So from a morality standpoint, a monotheistic God makes life a lot easier than all the different gods in the Vedic tradition, I find. There is, of course, that question also about preaching. Yes, preaching. If you share something or preach, describe something or prescribe something, there's so much difference when you share where you're at, and especially in the spiritual rooms here on Clubhouse, it happens a lot that it's either prescribed instead of described from their point of view. Because actually it's really interesting to listen to the truth of where they're coming from and the similarities, but also the differences. So, yeah, that was my, for Christianity, the theistic point. We also were talking about the people who were kind of talking, they call themselves Advaitins. So they really are the form in which Advaita appears. Some of them are really, really floating, I call them, by calling the world not existing and things like that. But it's the same with Christianity. It is not the teaching itself that is the wrongdoing. It is the one who represents the teaching, that they are either full of eagerness or they're so attached to what they know that it's coming out like a theistic point of view. But what I love about Advaita is the freedom it represents. it represents total freedom. And that is the beauty of it. There's nobody to answer to but yourself. And that is the bottom line. And everything else is just bringing you to that point of acceptance. And I love that. And I'm very grateful I came across you. Because you went really deep into it, so it has helped a lot. So thank you.
Thank you, Karan. Thank you for expressing yourself.
I do want to say to you, Bindo, too, that it's quite amazing that you've studied these scriptures that you're completely overly familiar with, and yet you can actually see that Jesus wasn't caught up in Christianity, and that he was actually saying, you will know them, the people. He said, don't take any food or clothing with you. Your provisions will be met. You will know them by their essence, right? You'll know them by the fruit of who they are. So this is the actual recognition of the oneness because of your essence, not because of some testimony of salvation. And so
Right.
I hope he got it. I hope aha moment happened there, right? So that was brilliant, actually. So
Thank you, Vic.
Really glad to see you, Karen. I've wondered, when I pop into rooms, I don't see you, and so it was really nice to hear what you had to say. I was a little bit wondering.
Thank you, Artemisia. Yeah, I was sick of the drama too. And so I shunned the drama for a bit, only went to the rooms that were productive and actually had a system. I'm kind of searching right now or waiting to see which direction it's gonna go. So I'm kind of hanging and see what's gonna happen. I don't think I'm in need of all the technical stuff that Advaita teaches. Most of it is already in a different way looked at. So it is very recognizable. So that is a little bit of a thing I'm still struggling with, Bindochi, because it is that have to. You cannot do this. You cannot do that. You have to look at it. You have to keep an eye on that. The freedom of being is then a little bit, it defies the purpose of the whole thing. If it isn't done in joy, or if it is like a have to, or out of fear that you're going to miss something, out of fear that you have to need to know this. And that is what I'm struggling with, because I can see it here and there too, that the fear that you're going to miss out on information that can bring you to that, because that is what the teachings is all about, right? They're the pointers to go within and to learn to trust the essence of what you are. And that sometimes supersedes anything that comes from the outside. And that is something what I recognized as well, because sometimes you want to have something so badly that you take control of your own actions, and you do something what you should be even you become so passionate in it. And I guess that is the karma yoga, in order to recognize that as well, that it's okay to experience. It's okay to look at the world and be present in the world and look at the different things, look at the different backgrounds, as long as you enjoy the action. If it is that it has to or have to, then you're going to miss the boat. Thank you.
Yes, Karim, you are right. The freedom may be lost if you have the, regulations, like do this, not to do that type of a regulation. But what Advaita is saying is that you can, for knowing yourself or for being yourself, there has no their best way to express it is to, how can you ever miss that? You can never miss yourself. You can never forget yourself or unknow yourself. So anything what is being said, don't do this, don't do that, is when you do not know who you are. But when you know who you are, there is no otherness. Everything is you. And in that, there is no do's and don'ts. For him, there is no do's and don'ts. What he does, he is doing it in himself or in that being. Whatever happens is apparently an action, but there is no real action from his point of view. That is the way in which he is, that state of recognized individual moves around in the world. But if somebody is saying that do this, don't do that, that person has no knowledge about what is that reality he is trying to talk about. That is where the Krishna himself says that, there are people who think they know the truth. Pandidam manyamana. There is a word used that they think they are the experts in it, but they do not know what is that state. So they have lots of do's and don'ts. But the one who has really understood, from his point of view, there is no otherness, so there is no do's. There is nothing outside his purview. He is all the time by himself. I'm using the word he for there is no other. I have to use some word for it, or it has to. I can use it as a neutral than the saying it. Then it will become inanimate. But at the same time, it is not inanimate. That is why I am using the word he. So it's not he or she. There is no gender for it. It's pure awareness. Be in it. Be happy.
Exactly. Thank you.
It's interesting. I'm just thinking about what you've said, Karen, and I may be missing parts of what you're saying or misunderstanding, but I know you've been around me enough in other houses to know some of the journeys I've been on in my own mind and heart the last couple of years. And I do think that there's something to be said for people like Karen, myself, Breck, Jesse, certain people who, for whom, some of the cultural and traditional part of Advaita, it isn't in our own culture, is that from what I've noticed, we don't tend to, as I'm sure some do, but we don't tend to get to a point where there's a sense of, I've called it just being totally resolved, meaning everything is resolved. where then if this were part of our culture, we might turn around and just find the greatest joy and deepening in diving deeper into the tradition or the scriptures. Instead, it's sort of like it's something different, and I think it has its pros and its cons. But part of it is we really are faced more fiercely, perhaps, at least I feel I have been, with the fact that ultimately this isn't about the tradition. And ultimately, although you say rightfully, Bindo, that this is a lone journey, it can feel especially a lone journey. And I've had times where I feel like I relate to what you said, Karen, when you say waiting, not waiting because we need something more, but waiting because it's so unapparent now how life is, because we're not in a culture that has any idea what's gone down for us with Advaita. And I would say that for me, the clearest resolution of that relative to Advaita, as opposed to other traditions and things I've gone through in my life, is what I was saying at the beginning, to find that the absolute satisfaction, the absolute bliss isn't quite fully it because it's in the world. That's why I like the word enjoyment. The absolute beyond enjoyment of just recognizing the moment and realizing that anything about how my life unfolds is somewhat irrelevant. And by when I say relax in the moment, I don't mean like mindfulness, like, oh, now this is what's happening, I'm totally enjoying what's happening or whatever. What I mean is that it really is true that just the recognition of being while also in the world is it, and that there's no it doesn't make sense to say something for me like, how will I now live my life? And there's no activity handed to me at all, like now I will study the scriptures more deeply, or anyway, I wanted to share that. I really appreciate what you were saying, Karen.
Yeah, I can see you got some parts of it. The way I'm looking at it, it's not about the tradition. It's not in keeping it alive or anything like that. Because in the end, we're not in control of that anyway. The only thing what we're able to do is share it. Is share being genuine of who you are. If you are at that point that you are comfortable with yourself and you know the truth of who you are, then it becomes a lot easier in order to be yourself. And you don't have to pretend. You don't have to, if it is a technical discussion and you don't know the technicalities, it's not that you have to memorize them. We have AI now, and we can look it up in AI, and it becomes really, it's a lot more convenient that way. So pressure on all sides is going to be gone. But if we are talking with people who are not in the tradition, and my family doesn't know at all that I have followed Advaita. But the beauty of Advaita is that the wisdom you gain from it and you interact with other people, you're able to apply that wisdom at the level they're at. So if it is about life, if it is about a relationship, if it is about problems they have in their life, you're able to see it more clearly because there is nothing within yourself that you're trying to apply to them. It is just purely recognizing where they're at, and you're going to help them from that perspective. And then even that helping, it is you're sharing something and you let it do its job or not. So, and that is where Bhagavad Gita, of course, comes from. You do the action and you leave it alone. Because we're not the ones in control of anything. So the freedom is really being yourself without worrying that you're screwing something up or you're not doing the right thing or things like that. That is the beauty of that freedom, because everything is only that oneness, that one. And how it expresses, how it through the other, that is not of our concern. And knowing that, then that brings a lightness to life that you cannot deny.
Well, I think Bendo hit the nail on the head when he was talking to the guy about what Jesus really meant and where Jesus was coming from. In that, Bendo said, quote, he loved everyone. So he's saying love your enemy because there are no enemies. He's hanging out with the ridiculous outcasts of society to show us there are no outcasts of society, right? He's showing the oneness, and then he's telling them you'll recognize them by their essence. And in that you're recognizing the sameness, the oneness. And you're not caught up in the content of the other, and that's what you guys are expressing. But and you're Artemisia, you were tapping on the misunderstanding of the oneness in the other, because we don't hold the same traditions and we don't do it the same way, and we haven't gotten to this place in the same way. So can you understand that content isn't what defines us, nor does it define you, right? It's looking past that, through that, in that knowing who you are, as Bendo said, right? That Jesus knew who he was. He's an example, as many of these teachers are to us, right? That an example of that love and that expression of love. And so, yeah, and the exasperation when that can't be received and nor recognized, right? But that's part of the play of Leela too, right? Is to be in that point of consternation also, in the non-recognition from someone that. So it's in that resistance to that. So in that way, then we're judging them on their content because they didn't understand us. So then we can see ourselves in that, to see that there's still an attachment to the content in that response to the other, right? So it's all in the play of Leela, right? So it's like we want it good or happy or peaceful, but yet do we see ourselves clearly in that, or do we see ourselves in the frustration and the exasperation of the drama, as you put it, Karen, right? So it all has a play, right?
Beauty of the culture. It's one of the first things I've learned, because I moved from Holland to Canada, lived there for a long time. So I really had to leave behind the Dutch culture, embrace a very cultural, well, there are many cultures there. So the interaction there was totally different. So it's one of the first things I've learned, that culture is superficial. It is not what defines anyone. Nothing. The culture is the outside thing we play with, the lila. And that is how we learn to understand what we are in life, by applying the cultural background of what we have grown up with. If you start looking at other cultures and you're able to embrace other cultures within their uniqueness of what they are, then you get a totally different beauty as well. And it doesn't have to be drama at all. it is in comparison only that we are able to, that drama comes, right? From I'm better than you, you're better than me, whatever. So, and you're right back in that. It is recognizing yourself, but it is not even when you look outside, when you look at others, and you recognize that everybody is exactly the way you are in human form. It is expressing themselves in the uniqueness of what they are. And then the whole picture changes. And the road of finding truth of who you are, and Benderji always says that it is a lonely road. It absolutely is. Because nobody can feel you, nobody can see within you how you experience things. We like to think that we are able to rely on each other, but in the end, it is a lonely road. You're gonna have to figure it out for yourself in the end. And make up, even though other people don't understand, and you're not able to speak about it, or whatever the case may be, that is the true road, that you are true to yourself till the end. And that is basically, because you have to deny things. It is the things in the world you have to deny, and you have to follow your own path, no matter what. And even though people will not agree, people will come and say, "Fine, you're totally wrong." People will say, like, "Okay," because they cannot see you, they cannot look into your heart, how you really are, and trust yourself totally. Have that guidance from within, and be self.
Before Jesse goes ahead, I know we're getting near the end. I just wanted to appreciate what you both said. When you were speaking, Breck, you may not have quite intended this, I don't know, but I got something along the lines of how I would see this of, if we are part of a tradition, and we have some very deep realization, then, and this speaks to you also, Karen, and to myself, then there can be a very strong tendency for our personal identity to be diminished, but we even strengthen or at least hold on to the identity of, I am a Christian, I am an Advaitin, I am the person who is spreading this way of talking about it. And I think that comes quite naturally, but it's still swapping out identities. And so for me, I think for many of us, including people deeply in traditions, but there's this opportunity, really extra opportunity, that we aren't given another identity really strongly. And that's a very good thing. And you spoke of freedom. I think you used that word, Karen. And, there's a thread that some of us have been in at times called absolute freedom. There's the phrase absolute freedom. And, I've used that as a sort of an indicator to me that I ask myself, is this really absolute freedom? And the other piece of that I ask myself that I felt you were both speaking to is, this relationship with others. Like for myself, I wouldn't choose to speak of wanting to share this or, like Karen, except for Wissam, who some of you have listened to me talk to a lot over the years, I really don't talk about this, with anyone. But, there's this, other indicator that came up for me several years ago on my own, which was, what if I'm the last person? Which kind of is the same thing as what if I'm everything and there are no individual people? How would I be living my life if I were the last person, without any concern for what anyone else thought, without any need to share anything with anyone? It's been very powerful for me, because for me to be the last person, or to be checking in, am I really in touch with being the only thing, all the traditions fall away. And that's really that freedom, in a sense, that you were mentioning, Karen, where we aren't checking in on anything. We aren't being insensitive, but we are really losing our indicators of being a separate person. And it is so alone, and but that's where the absolute freedom is. So you were both really beautiful. Sorry to make you wait, Jesse. I really appreciated all that.
Namaste, Jesse.
Namaste, Bindo, and everyone. Artemisia, you went exactly where I was going to go about identity. And just really loved this conversation because for me, I can only speak about my experience. For me, when I can trust that inner teacher leads me through insight, inspiration, epiphany, sometimes revelations, energetic magneticism, radiation, whatever, when I'm led by inspiration of inner teacher, then I don't really care about what other people think. I mean, that didn't mean that to sound harsh. I care deeply about other people, but I don't worry about whether I'm on the right path. In fact, I had to come to a decision, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, when people started saying, but you've done, Kriya Yoga and metaphysical Christianity, and now you're looking into Advaita and Bhagavad Gita and all this kind of stuff. Like, are you just doing a spiritual smorgasbord? And I had to look really deeply at that because I'm not just a dabbler. I study, and I consider it to be a privilege at this point in my life where I have the time, the energy, and the deep reverence for study. But it's that same idea that if we don't have an identity in a particular path, like it would have been really easy for me to be a Californian who only identified as Christian, but no, I've lived all, around the world and that kind of stuff. So I guess I'm just saying I really appreciate the conversation, and me personally, I don't have an identity that is invested in only one path, because the commonalities and the similarities with the consciousness that is for me the same. And that's just what I wanted to say. Thank you so much for this beautiful conversation. Peace, everybody.
I actually forgot to say something really important, really, about Bindo, if I can talk about you just a second, which is someone could listen to this and think, oh, well, what does it say about Bindo? He's reading these scriptures and he's talking about Advaita. But what I have to say is I feel that I know you quite well, Bindo, and it's very clear to me not only that you're open, like in the responses you give to Breck, but that you're enjoying and deepening yourself as you study these things, just as I study other things. But I feel that you are remarkably free of tradition, especially given being many years in India and the things that you're studying. And you have been a real nothing but positive for me in terms of breaking away from the idea that we need an identity and a tradition. Although you do a beautiful job of it and it does its work through you, that's my very real view, that if people want to go freer than a tradition, that you're there to do it with them.
Thank you, Artemisia. Prakash, can we end the day?
Jody.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Okay. I just want to say, I do know that in order to look for truth of what we are, that we need to be exposed to that what gives us the truth. And I know that the Upanishads are truth. So the exposure to it is important. It's not about learning it. It's not about memorizing it. it is about exposure to the essence that is in all of us. And that's why we're all here. That is absolutely why we're all here, because some bigger force has brought us all here in order to listen to it and to contemplate it and to look at it, and to recognize self in the word that, that is clarity. It gives us so much clarity in looking at things. So the smorgasbord, Jesse, is very important. So thank you for sharing that.
Yes, I think we had very different views of the same thing today. So it was wonderful. As always, thank you everyone for attending this session where we had a kind of open discussion on Advaita from different perspectives and deepening our insights into how our journey turns out. And as Bindoji always reminds us, it is the inquiry that is consistently needed to move us in the direction of clarity. And as always, thank you to Bindoji and for everyone who came up onto the stage and shared their views and for a lively discussion. So we will meet again at 8:30 p.m. IST tomorrow, where Bindoji will continue on the Bhagavad Gita with room number 29 of chapter 4. So if you want to catch up on the replay, you can go into the clubhouse back, into the house and look at the replays, or you can go into the Advaita Retold channel where the talks are being uploaded, or the alternate links are also shared. And with that, have a wonderful day, and thank you very much, Bindoji. Over to you to close the room.
Thank you, Prakash, Misha, Derek, Sweeney, Uma, Karin, Jesse, for making this room such a lovely room and expressing your true heart for your experiences and journey you all doing. God bless you. See you all tomorrow. Good night.
Good night. Hari Om.